The biggest aha moment for me was when I realized that I could choose to be mindful at any time. You see, mindfulness is an approach, not just an activity. The practice of being mindful can take a variety of shapes, and the more ways you learn how to practice mindfulness, the more opportunities you have to practice. And the more practice you get, the better you get at it. Welcome to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, where we explore the keys to unlocking your full potential and living your best life. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. Whether you're looking to make a breakthrough, overcome a challenge, or simply live with greater clarity, joy, and purpose, you'll find the tools and inspirations you need right here. So let's start your journey towards personal mastery and growth right now. Welcome back to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, your go-to resource for practical tips, insightful research, and inspiring stories to help you unlock your full potential. I'm your host, Jose Johnson, and I'm an expert in mindfulness, mindset, and peak performance, and I am so thrilled to have you with me here today. And today we're going to discuss mindfulness. Well, if you've ever wondered why your mindfulness routine hasn't quite hit the mark, you're in the right place. So buckle up, my friends, hold on to your seats or your meditation cushions as the case may be, and let's take this journey together. When people find out that I'm a mindfulness expert, I often get one of these two comments. It's either, I tried it, but it doesn't work for me, or the related comment, I would love to practice mindfulness, but I just don't have the time. Well, in my experience, there are three reasons that people have reached this completely erroneous conclusion. And those three reasons are, either they have the wrong definition of what mindfulness really is, 2, they have unrealistic expectations about mindfulness, or 3, they just don't have the right approach. So today, I'm going to bust those 3 myths, plus give you some practical tools to get the mindfulness train moving in the right direction. So let's start with reason number 1, the wrong definition. Now, you've probably heard people talking about mindfulness, right? It's a term that's as trendy as avocado toast, but what does it really mean? Well, allow me to share a little personal story. I began studying Chinese martial arts in the late 1980s, and one phrase I learned was mama hu hu. Now, the translation of this phrase is horse, horse, tiger, tiger. Now, that sounds confusing, right? And that's exactly what this phrase means. If you see a horse, well, you might want to ride it. If you see a tiger, you're most certainly not going to want to climb on its back. So what do you do if you're not sure which one it is? Do you run towards it or run away from it? So when something is mama hoo-hoo, it means that it lacks clarity. You don't know what something is or what you need to do. Now, what does this have to do with mindfulness? See, some folks think mindfulness is just for monks or granola crunching hippies, or that if you practice mindfulness, you'll never experience stress, sorrow, or anger, or that the only way to practice mindfulness is by meditating. But guess what? Mindfulness isn't just a wellness buzzword. It's the steering wheel of a high-performance life. It's like having a GPS for your emotions and thoughts, and the science backs it up. So let's break it down. First, let's start out with the actual definition of mindfulness. According to the Oxford Dictionary, mindfulness is the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. It's also a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. See? Not one mention of having to shave your head, sell your worldly possessions, and give up your bourbon and burgers. Mindfulness is a mental process, and while it's actually hardwired into our brain, mindfulness practices have a number of benefits across the full spectrum of our well-being. Mindfulness helps with recognizing our physical sensations and being present. It's like a body scan, but without the awkward hospital gown. When you become more mindful, you become more aware of things like your posture, where you hold your tension, and how you move. Mindfulness improves our emotional connections. When we're better able to understand our emotions, we're better able to manage them, turning confusion into clarity. You can think about mindfulness as emotional weather forecasting. Mindfulness also increases our mental focus. Mindfulness helps us to sharpen the mind. If your mind were a knife, Mindfulness, well, that would be the whetstone. The mental benefits of mindfulness include increased creativity and productivity, as well as helping us to develop a more positive affect and a growth mindset. Mindfulness can also help with our spiritual alignment by connecting us with something bigger. It's kind of like Wi-Fi for the soul. Mindfulness even plays a role in financial decisions, helping you choose wisely. It's sort of like having a frugal fairy godmother on your shoulder. Now let's look at reason number 2, the wrong expectations in mindfulness. So as we talk about expectations, let's start with this one. If you're expecting to levitate during meditation or suddenly know all the answers of life, the universe, and everything, which the answer is 42, by the way, you might be setting yourself up for disappointment. You see, too often when people embark on a mindfulness journey, they expect their lives to change immediately. Well, while it does in some ways, it's typically not the way that people expect. There is a big difference between immediate change and long-term change. Mindfulness certainly has the power to create near immediate changes in your neurochemistry and as a result in your psychology and your physiology. But those changes don't always last. Why? Because who we are at this moment is the culmination of all of our past habits, actions, thoughts, beliefs, and experiences. And a 1-hour yoga class, well, it's not going to immediately undo decades of trauma, anxiety, or improperly managed stress. But it does get the needle moving in the right direction. It helps you break out of whatever spiral you're currently in, if only for the moment. Another misconception is mindfulness makes your problems go away. No, it doesn't. It just helps you to develop the clarity to recognize your situation for what it is and gives you the calm to respond with a centered approach and not just react emotionally. So I want you to keep in mind that mindfulness is about progress, not perfection. It's like learning to play an instrument. You don't start out with a major symphony. In fact, it's the failures that bring about our success. Look, I can't tell you the number of people who have told me that they don't meditate because when they try, their minds start wandering. What they're missing is that is the entire point of meditation. It's the practice of learning to focus your mind. Your mind is designed to wander. That's part of what psychologists call our default mode network. It's actually very healthy and helpful to daydream and let your thoughts run free. Look, it's kind of like having a dog. Sometimes it needs to be on a leash. Sometimes it needs to be able to run around. If your dog is well trained, you can bring it back with a command. That's what mindfulness does with your thoughts. So when you meditate and your thoughts begin to drift, this is the real practice of mindfulness. It's the opportunity to practice gently pulling your attention back to where you want it to be. Mindfulness isn't some kind of magic wand, although sometimes I wish it were. It's a journey with twists and turns. It takes time and patience to build the skills of a mindfulness master. But like I said, change does start in a matter of seconds. But if you want lasting change, you have to develop a consistent practice to make sure that the new neural pathways that you're generating take root. And that brings us to reason number 3, the wrong approach to mindfulness. Most people have a very limited concept of how to practice mindfulness. Now, perhaps they took a Tai Chi or a yoga class and they found that the feeling in class was blissful, but they couldn't carry that same feeling from the classroom to the boardroom. The reason is that they're confusing the principle with the practice. Look, you don't need anything special to practice mindfulness, though sometimes training wheels help at first. You don't need special clothes. You don't need special music. You don't need special mats. You don't have to be alone. The room doesn't need to be dark and quiet. You just need to be present. The biggest aha moment for me was when I realized that I could choose to be mindful at any time. You see, mindfulness is an approach, not just an activity. The practice of being mindful can take a variety of shapes, and the more ways you learn how to practice mindfulness, the more opportunities you have to practice. And the more practice you get, the better you get at it. Having taught literally tens of thousands of people of all ages from around the world, I became a little obsessed with finding a better way to help people get the results they needed. You see, lots of people came to me because they were in need of immediate change in their lives. They were so stressed out that they were having heart attacks or strokes. Sometimes it was someone who had a lot of responsibility that was on the verge of a nervous collapse. They didn't have years to get things under control. They couldn't just run off to some cave in a mountain to become one with the universe. They needed a practical solution, and they needed it now. And that's what led me to dive headfirst into the studies of neuroscience and psychology to help me better understand how and why the ancient traditions work. It gave me the ability to differentiate between the process from the dogma. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything inherently wrong with following any of the traditional methods. And if you have the time and ability to meditate for 6 hours a day like one of my teachers does, well, God bless you, because most of us don't have that luxury. So, for example, I recently developed a mindfulness program for one of the most stressed out segments of our society, nurses. Nurses are under a tremendous amount of stress on a daily basis because of the nature of their jobs. And if you are a nurse, you know a nurse, or have ever been in a hospital, you know how fast-paced their environment is. So while traditional methods are beneficial off the clock, they aren't realistic in their day-to-day reality. They have to switch gears so fast that they often don't have a minute to breathe, let alone an hour to meditate. And the same is true for others like police officers, firefighters, and pilots. They need tools that are practical and tactical, things that can be done in the moment to give immediate relief so that they can continue doing their important work. Things that take 90 seconds or less, because often that's about all the time that they have. And that's why having a full toolbox of mindfulness techniques comes in very handy. Mindfulness isn't one size fits all. It's more like a buffet, and who doesn't love a good buffet? So let's explore the menu. There are meditation practices. Now, there are a variety of meditation techniques like seated meditation, standing meditation, guided meditation. Prayer is even considered a form of meditation. When it comes to meditation, there's something for everyone. So it's kind of like selecting the right seasoning for your dinner. Another is mindful movement. Practices like Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga have proven benefits for the body, mind, and spirit. They are an all-inclusive approach to wellness. There's mindful eating. Eating slowly and learning to savor the flavors. It turns every meal into a 5-star mindful experience. There's also mindful walking. Imagine turning your stroll in the park into a mindfulness journey. It's like dancing with nature. And of course, there's breath control. Learning to breathe mindfully can have huge impacts on stress and anxiety. It's the remote control for your emotions. And if you would like to learn more about ways to incorporate mindful breathing techniques into your day, check out episode 6, where I take you on a deep dive into the power of breath. Now, another problem with people's approach to mindfulness is that it isn't sustainable. Now, this is a very common problem that people have when they're trying to incorporate any type of healthy change into their lives, and doubly so when it comes to mindfulness. My suggestion to my coaching clients is to commit to the smallest action that you can perform consistently. If you're a busy executive who's constantly on the road or in meetings, or a nurse who's juggling working her 12-hour shifts while raising a family, you might not be able to commit to doing a Tai Chi class 3 times a week. But you can easily commit to doing 90 seconds of mindful breathing while your coffee is brewing, or saying affirmations or mantras while you're taking your shower. The trick is to find as many opportunities to practice mindfulness as you can. And my personal experience is that you will get much better results if you take an hourly 1-minute mindfulness break than if you try to block out a single 1-hour session. So one way to start is to build out a super short morning ritual to get your day started on the right path, and an easy practice to wind down your day. Now, they should take no more than 5 minutes. And then start to look for hidden opportunities during the day to just take a pause. And once you get on a roll, you're probably going to find that you can bump up the duration of each session. So there you have it. My take on how to get mindfulness to work for you, no matter your situation. Interested in a deeper dive? Well, my book, Mindfulness Secrets, 90 Ways in 90 Days, is your passport to inner peace, and you can find a link to it in the show notes. Well, that about does it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to like and subscribe. If you have a friend who could benefit from a practical approach to mindfulness, please share this episode with them. And if you have a question or suggestion for a future topic, please drop me a line. I'm here for you. So until next time, remember, it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. So make it great. Thanks for tuning in. Before we wrap up, I just want to remind you that the information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional advice or treatment. While the content of this podcast is based on research and personal experience, everyone's situation is unique, and the advice given may not be applicable to all. Always consult a qualified professional before making significant changes in your life. The Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast is recorded at the So Good Media Studios, located in the Candy Factory, a co-working space in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.